So we've got breaking this morning, the new unemployment numbers for new claims over the past week. So 1.2 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits over the past week. Now, the good news is that is a decline. That is the lowest number that we've seen since the start of the pandemic. The bad news is this is the 20th straight week in a row where we have had more than a million Americans filing for unemployment. So here to discuss this and also where we are in the economic stimulus negotiations is Washington Post economics reporter and great friend of the show, Jeffrey Stein. Great to see you, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
First, let me just get your reaction to those numbers. Help us put those in context.
So I think it's really worth remembering here that while that is a slight decline from previous weeks, we are supposed to be in the economic recovery period of this pandemic. According to President Trump and the White House, this is the period in which the economy is roaring back to health. And yet, despite that, we are still seeing numbers of weekly joblessness claims that far exceed really what we've seen in American history up until this point for jobs lost in a given week. I mean, you look at the charts and what they show about this is, a degree of increase beyond what anyone had thought possible. And that is what we're still talking about now as good news. So, yeah. It's just really shocking to wrap your head around that. The key thing to watch for here, as important as these weekly jobless numbers are, is what will the unemployment rate be for the month? And actually, this is a bit of a lagging indicator because we have the May and June numbers, and we're waiting for the July numbers. And the July numbers, which are going to be released soon, are going to tell us whether the unemployment rate, after falling from 15% to 11%, are continue to go in the right direction. So, bad sign today, slightly better than previous weeks, but for an economy that's supposed to be recovering very quickly, still signs of real devastation. And very likely, economists say that given that all the stimulus money, all the PPP money is expiring, the unemployment money is expiring, given all of that, that is probably, the numbers we're seeing now are probably higher than they'll be once that aid money is fully expired and off the economy's impact. I mean, you don't see it measured anymore in the economy. So really troubling in a lot of ways.
I think that is so well said. Like, anyone who's going to take a victory lap over 1.2 million Americans filing for unemployment, more than we've really seen in any previous period in history, needs to check themselves. And so it's a perfect transition to your latest reporting. Just bring us up to speed about where congressional and White House negotiators are in terms of a deal. And also, I know you have some new reporting about the White House taking more steps to see what they could do unilaterally here. So just bring us up to speed.
So I was just watching Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on CNBC. Clearly, with the economy not doing so well, a lot of congressional leaders are eager to assure investors as well as voters that the economy is going to get some sort of federal boost. And McConnell said that over and over again. While some Republicans want to do nothing, want to add no additional money to the economy from the government, he says that the party's position is that they want to do something, that the White House wants to, the Fed wants to, Democrats want to, and they're going to get something done. But we've been hearing that for weeks. And I'll just say, I talked to a source yesterday, and she was saying to me, look, I don't know if we're going to get a deal this week. We might not. We might try again for a deal next week, but alternatively, we may not try for a deal next week. So really narrowing the range of possibilities here to basically every possible thing you could conceive of. The White House's approach right now, and what President Trump has been doing in his White House press briefings, is to sort of threaten the possibility of unilateral action. We broke this story on Monday that the White House is looking for all kinds of ways to say, we're just going to do what we want to do on our own, provide the safeguards that we think are necessary. That way we don't have to negotiate with Pelosi and the Democrats, and we can just approve what we want done. And so last night we learned that White House officials have ordered all of the federal agencies, places like HUD and Department of Transportation and other federal agencies, to come up with all of the money that was approved by Congress that has not been spent yet. And the reason they're doing that is because they want to see if any of that money can be moved around. If Congress approved $100 billion for this program, that program has not started or been spent yet, can the administration reprogram it, that's the word they're using, reprogram, and use it for paying unemployment benefits? Now, that idea, a lot of people I talk to say is just generated primarily to scare Democrats and get them to think that they're going to do this on their own, and that will bring them to the table. So we'll have to see if that actually moves the needle in negotiations. I'm somewhat skeptical, but White House officials are really, really eager to get a deal done. And Trump clearly he senses the political danger here of not doing anything, I think.
Well, and so basically the people who have been most key in the negotiations, correcting me if I'm wrong, of course, is Pelosi and Schumer on the Democratic side, and then Meadows and Mnuchin on the Republican side. Meadows was out basically talking about exactly what you're saying, that if there isn't a deal, they're going to go forward with executive action. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
But what I'm saying is by Friday, if we haven't made significant progress and we're just too far apart, the president is prepared to take executive action. And on those two items that you're talking about, making sure that eviction protection is done, he will do that through executive action, making sure that those enhanced unemployment payments that stopped because Democrats refused to say yes just a few days ago, he will do executive actions and take executive actions to actually address those two areas to make sure that at least what he can do is take action because Congress won't.
So, Jeff, is it your sense that this is like a head fake to try to create some negotiating leverage on the Republican side where they really haven't had much of any to speak of? Or is this a real potential course of action that they're contemplating here?
I really wish I could give you like the actual answer to this question because it's been driving me nuts trying to figure out. And I spent all week calling people who I know who are in the administration or close to the administration saying, like, what's really the plan here? And I guess what I would try to say with all proper caveats included is that I think on evictions and the payroll tax side, it's actually pretty clear that they can do something. Evictions, the White House has the authority to tell HUD to basically stop all evictions related to federally backed properties. That would still leave a lot of people at risk because, the vast majority of rental properties in this country are privately held and not secured by federal backing from Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. That could be done pretty easily unilaterally. And a little harder, but still probably doable, is this notion that they're going to cut payroll taxes unilaterally. I guess it wouldn't really be a cut or a change in the law. There would be no change to say the payroll tax is now zero. Instead, what the administration would do is they would tell the IRS to stop collecting new taxes from the withholdings of employees and workers. And that could be done. It could be very dangerous, and it could be something that people don't really feel comfortable taking because the law wouldn't say that. And then at some point, workers may be forced to pay back what they weren't paying right now. And so that could create a huge problem in the future, especially, if President Joe Biden in January comes in and all of a sudden, all of this money that wasn't actually, all this tax revenue that was owed but wasn't actually cut is expected to come due. It could be a really strange situation, but it is pretty clear, most of the legal experts I talk to say, that the White House could say to the IRS, stop collecting these taxes, which would in effect amount to a form of payroll tax cut.
Interesting. Sure, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, on the unemployment side, it's a little trickier. Congress is basically in charge, it's in the Constitution that Congress controls spending. And so it is possible that, and it happens occasionally, that the White House says, this money has not been approved. Can we use it for a slightly different program? So that happens occasionally. This was actually sort of the subject of the entire Ukraine scandal that got so much hype and attention, mostly sort of on a partisan basis. But a lot of people at the time were saying, this Ukraine money, it was Congress said to spend it. The White House said don't spend it. That's a violation of the law. The Government Accountability Office found that it was a violation of the law. That's a similar thing that we're looking at here. The White House just sort of unilaterally say, we want to move this money here. I think while that seems very questionable legally to a lot of people I talk to, it's hard to imagine who would challenge it, right? Who's going to spend time suing the administration in court for securing unemployment benefits for out-of-work Americans? I don't think that's something the Democrats are going to do.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And look, there basically nothing has been resolved. It seems like they're all on the same page in terms of the direct stimulus payments, but every other major big ticket item seems to be still very much in flux. But the unemployment benefits have been a particular sticking point. And one of the big questions has been, are Democrats going to bend from $600? We have some new comments from Nancy Pelosi on that. Let's take a listen.
So are you coming closer together on that all-important federal unemployment benefits number? Democrats were asking for $600 a week to continue. Right. Republicans were saying $200. Are you somewhere in between? We were told maybe
there's no in between. There's no in between. The fact is that since we passed our bill, which was 11 weeks ago tomorrow, 3.3 million more people have gone on to the infected list of those infected. 70,000 more people have died. And the Republicans said they were going to push the pause button. And they did, and then last week they came up with some piecemeal thing. So we are not saying to the American people, more people are infected, more people are dying, more people are uninsured, more children are hunger insecure, or food insecure, and guess what? We're going to cut your benefit.
So she's essentially drawing a hard line here publicly, but is that what you're hearing is happening privately as well?
It honestly sounds like it. And I actually, as you probably remember, I was on the show and I was talking about how some Democrats had privately told Senate Democratic leadership, hey, we're not really comfortable with this $600 benefit. We might be open to cutting it. And, maybe this will be a foolhardy comment, but it really seems like Pelosi has dragged the White House toward her position. Just yesterday, we heard, and the Post confirmed, that the White House is now offering $400 a week for the rest of the year, up from their initial offer of $200 a week for the rest of the year. That's a major concession and a move in the Democrats' direction. And Pelosi responded to it by saying, that's not good enough. You have to get even closer to $600. And I'm frankly surprised. I thought Democrats were going to be much more willing to come somewhere in the middle, and maybe they still will. Maybe there was some speculation from some of the Republicans I talked to yesterday that Pelosi was essentially that part of what's happening is the White House is trying to show their Republican allies, look at how difficult the Democrats are, look at how we had no choice but to make an agreement with them. So what this can be interpreted as being about is the White House leaking, we offered $400, and Pelosi still said no. Can you believe that? So if at some point they get $450 or $500, then the White House can turn to the Republicans and say, look, I know we wanted $200, but Pelosi wouldn't even give us $400. So if we can get $450 or $500, we're going to take that. So that's a bit speculative on my part, but I think that's what's likely happening here. There's a lot of angst in the Republican caucus right now, and I think the White House is kind of looking for cover for Mitch McConnell. McConnell has sort of been willing to alienate, the 15, 20 or so members of his caucus who don't want any more spending, and he's been pretty steadfast that there has to be something. And if McConnell can then say, look, the White House did everything it could to give you guys what you want, but just Pelosi's just so tough, we can't do anything about it. Maybe that's what's happening here.
Very, very interesting. And, he's already admitted that they're going to have to pass it using Democratic votes. So that's already been conceded. Jeff, always so great to have your insights here. Thank you so much.
Happy to be on whenever. Thanks so much, Crystal.
Next on Rising, Rashida Tlaib's victory in Michigan means at least part of the squad is back for business. Dan Marins is going to discuss details of that race and also what is coming up. That is next on Rising.